raw material of a child's experience.
Good boy, isn't it? She's got the bottle of champagne ready. Yeah. One. Smash. Hey!
But it's not just an enjoyable outing. These visits are preceded by careful preparation, and it's so arranged that impressions made can be reflected in clay or paint or words when the children return to the classroom.
Black, red. First we have put the cardboard together, stick it with glue. Then we put paper on it, and then we painted it.
I would not like to launch a ship, but I would like to smash the bottle of champagne.
No, they're not tuning up. They're exploring sound and discovering for themselves rhythm, harmony and melody. These 10 and 11-year-olds are practicing in groups compositions which they've written themselves.
Spring is coming, birdies build your nests. Weave together straw and feather, doing each your best.
Our piece is called Rubber Dub Dub.
Here you see, we're talking about the bathhouse at Chester's, aren't we? And you've written a little about the bathhouse. Now I want you to sort of draw the plan and use the plan in order to show how the Romans came in, through into the changing room, what they did in the changing room, and they walked into the various rooms, you'll see, and how they finished off by having oil rubbed into their skin. And how they finished off by having the pores opened by the walls of heat, and how after that they went to the cold room and closed the pores, came back into the changing room, and then went back outside. So I'm trying to follow this through. Now how are we going over this moment? Now we've got these 4 different containers, and they all contain the same amount of water. They were different. And how did you work out the difference?
And what is the teacher's role in all this?
Yes.
Well, a good teacher makes it possible for children to learn. The teacher used to stand in front of the class and impart information. Now he works alongside the pupil and guides his learning. This reflects a different attitude to children, a belief that learning, to be effective, must be active and often vocal.
Now Keith, come out here a minute. Now Now you see, we haven't enough action in this. Do you see? All these men are busy working on the lawn. They're all doing different sorts of jobs. And we haven't got enough action. And we've got...
One day this old English sheepdog came to school and the teacher asked us questions and we could talk about it and we could describe it, its movements and how it reacted towards us.
The shape formed into a dog, but rather like a massive bear. It looked round nervously, and all its matted hair swung round. It then came and flopped down in the middle of the room. Big Ben was its name. It was named after a clock in London. He was just like a heap of wool walking. His eyes were hidden under a mass of woolly hair. His feet were like carthouses' hooves, covered in hairs.
He's like an old man walking around. I bet the barber would need the lawnmower to cut his long and floppy, fluffy fur.
Moving cautiously and nervously around the room, padding and investigating the strange things around him. Shy, although a gigantic size. Very peaceful and placid, a fluffy heap lying on the floor, tremendous but soft and lovable, a joyful animal to play with. Mrs. Cox said that Ben would not make a very good guard dog because when he is asleep you could not wake him up banging pots and pans next to him.
He looked like an enormous polar bear. In the middle of Ben's fluffy coat, the colours changed from creamy white to a slow browny grey colour. Ben has a dirty black ugly beard where it has gone in his dinner and water.
I made a model of Big Ben out of clay. It was easy at first, but when he came to the head it was a bit hard because sometimes you can't get the proper shape of it, and the legs were thinner. Then I had to make them a bit fatter because it couldn't stand up.
A lot of other people were using paint and clay and things like that. I prefer fur and wool and things like that because they feel more like Ben. It probably looked more like Ben as well.
Can you imagine a huge dog like Ben going out in the rain and coming in again? He would leave big paw marks all over. At last Big Ben got too hot and the gigantic snowball went home.
One of the main reasons for using calculating machines in the school is because it sets children thinking analytically about mathematical processes.
If I was going to multiply by 79 by 98, I could turn the handle 98 times. But the most efficient way is moving the numbers into the tens column and turn the handle 9 times, and then move the numbers down into the units column and turn it 8 times.
When you add 9 and 9, the unit number goes down 1 and the tens number goes up 1. The two numbers always add up to 9, and if it's 3 numbers, they add up to 9 as well.
Well, here I'm making a pattern of tessellation by using 9 triangles, different colours. I can make them up to 1 triangle, and if I cut out more triangles I can make it into big squares and rectangles and many other shapes.
Well, the geometry we're doing in primary schools is not the geometry that we did when we were doing theorems, but it is more in line with what the ancients did when they had themselves to discover the properties of shapes by handling and using these shapes.
Some of us went to Eyam, the plague village in Derbyshire, and whilst we was there, we went to Treatcliff Cavern. And after we'd seen the caves, we found the stream at the bottom. Some of us wanted to know how fast it was flowing, so Mr. Price dropped a twig into the water, and when it passed Mrs. Price, we looked how long it took. It took 6 seconds. Then Mrs. Price measured the distance on the path it floated. It took 52 steps. When we got back to the study centre, we measured the length of Mrs. Price's boat. It was 11.5 inches long, but we called it 12 inches. It moved 8 feet in 1 second. It was going at approximately 5 miles per hour.
In the cavern, Blue John shines like gold. The feeling is dreadfully cold. The colours are remarkable.
It is so quiet you can't hear anything but drops and drops of water. The colour of the stalactites and stalagmites is fantastic. There is long veins of blue John all round the cavern. The shadow of the witch is staggering. The 7 dwarfs stand like cold statues.
Cold, mysterious, long, wet and rough. Drip, dripping on the floor. Drip, drip, there it goes again. As I walk along the tunnel, the water is dripping. Cold, mysterious, wet. It's dark and cold. Water drips on my head. Weird, eerie, spooky, weary, wet. Chip, chip, someone's mining for something. Sparkling, dazzling, glittering. Shining in the darkness.
Cold are the walls to touch. Feeling of fear comes before you. As you enter the dark, no words can describe the fear of dark. Eager to explore the dark, you move on, not knowing what will come before you after 3 steps more.
School museum shows usually conjures up in people's mind a rather imposing building containing exhibitions and display cases. Now ours, it isn't like this at all. It is more like the left luggage office at the Euston Station. Nearly 12,000 items are catalogued and available for loan, and these cover museum objects, contemporary British paintings and sculpture, 60mm films, gramophone records, film strips and slides. There are natural history objects, stuffed birds and animals, geological specimens, many models which we construct in our own workshops. In the West Riding we have a very large child population. In all approximately 1,250 schools. And the cost spread out over these schools and in fact does work out at about 8 pence per child per annum. Now of course that's pretty good value. Another important factor is the presentation of these things. When a box arrives at a school and the teacher with the children open the box, we hope there will be really a gasp of delight, a feeling we must get at this material, we must use it.
Going round.
You think so? Well, let's have a look inside and see pardon?
Musical box.
You think it's a musical box?
Yes.
Well, shall we try it and see
Because this is like a record.
Oh, you think it's like a record? Right.
Looks a bit like a circular saw.
That's rather good, isn't it? Yeah. Shall we try it and see if you were right then? You think it's a musical box. There is a knob at that side there. You pull it out. Away she goes.
So do those round these make the music?
No, well, let's just listen, and we'll see then. Just listen to it for a while.
The small holes in the disc could make music.
These holes. Well, let's just stop it then for a moment. Oh dear me. Doesn't look as if we can stop it, so we'll take that off. Right. Just stand up. And you say this disc looks like a... Oh, it's like a piano. Oh, now just once. Now, Steve, go on.
These small things.
Yes.
When the
You think the hammers?
they could come up and hit the disc.
Oh, let's turn it over.
Where the smaller holes are.
So the ones push it down and
those
Well, just let's take
those small bits at the end push it back out. So there could be kind of clips.
Clips. Yes. Go on, carry on. One at a time. Go on.
The wheels push it down, and those bits there that catch the spurs and make them vibrate.
Ah. Oh, can we get a better word for that?
The children are not told the right word. Together with the teacher, they work towards it. It's a problem of language that they share and solve. Even in an affluent society, there are children who are deprived. They may be unwanted or resented. Some suffer the stress of coming from poor homes and living in overcrowded places where unemployment is high. Sometimes such areas are designated as educational priority areas, where special help, equipment and staff is given to the school. And this man is one of a team of 75 full-time West Riding teachers who go from school to school helping over 10,000 children to learn to play a musical instrument. It may look confusing to you, but it's not to them. Pieces of card and plastic help children to grasp difficult mathematical concepts. Mathematics is merely a way of understanding how things are related to one another. What we can discover for ourselves has got a deeper meaning for us. This boy is not playing with blocks. He is, in fact, inventing long division for himself.
For a remainder, 9,989 divided by 8 answers 1,222 remain 4.
There is a social training in this type of work. They're learning to share equipment and to work as a team. It's concrete to a child. He sees it.
Tony had to pick two up, and I had to say which had the most squares on.
Well, there's numbers on these yellow shapes, and there's a picture in this little book what you get with the game, and numbers across the top of the shape in the book, and we've got to get those numbers. Well, we've got all these bottles on his desk, and they've got different numbers on and the different shapes. And you've got to guess how much they measure, and then you've got to correct it.
In the shadow of the Emily Moore transmitter mast, in the little village of Shelley, the headmaster had an interesting idea which fitted well into village life.
But I wanted the parents to be more involved in the education of their children. I thought that if I could give them something to do in the school, which they thought was making a very worthwhile contribution, then they would be all the happier to come in. And so I organised initially a rota of 12 parents. They were going to help the teachers by backing books, by mounting pictures, and by making very simple apparatus. This would be a help to the teacher, and it would be a help to them, because they would be coming into school and finding out more about their child's education. The teachers themselves were a little bit wary of this. It's a big thing, I think, when teachers have parents coming into school to see what they're doing. They're opening their doors. And a lot of teachers, if they weren't on top of the job, wouldn't do this.
Well, I like to go to school. For one thing, it gets you out of the house, amongst the children. And as I'm very fond of children, I enjoy this Tuesday morning work. Also, you get a better insight of what's going on in school. You realise that it isn't all easy for the teachers, that they're hard pressed, really.
The teachers really welcome the parents coming in to do these jobs for them. Parents do not do any reading with the children, and neither do they do any teaching of any description at all, but they are not made to feel as though they are the general dog's body.
In schools, books are everywhere. Classroom libraries are used by children who are looking for answers to the questions which come from the work that they're doing. Books are a source of pleasure and delight to those who read them quietly on their own. And the enjoyment of being read to makes children want to read for themselves.
Mrs. Brown bent down. "You're a very small bear," she said. The bear puffed out his chest. "I'm a very rare sort of a bear," he replied importantly. "There aren't many of us left from where I come from." "And where is that?" asked Mrs. Brown. "Darkest Peru. I'm not really supposed to be here at all. I'm a stowaway." "A stowaway?" Mr. Brown lowered his voice and looked anxiously over his shoulder.
High standards of presentation and display are part of the school's normal background. They're not just there for the benefit of visitors. They stimulate the children and can counter the often hostile and daunting environment outside. But even the harshest landscape can provide a starting point.
We're doing this project on local industries, and instead of doing a picture, we thought we'd do a pylon. And at the same time, we were in maths, we was doing the strength of a triangle. So we thought we'd make it out of triangles, like a triangle, to show the strength.
The triangle is a strong shape. It is not like the rectangle and the square, because the rectangle and the square can move freely. Here we made a rectangle and it moved about freely, so we put these crossbars in and we found that it still moved freely, and so we got this one and did the same and put this diagonal bar in, and we found that it couldn't move and it made it much stronger, and so it was rigid.
Well, if we'd have made our pylon out of these straight strips, it wouldn't have supported as much weight as these with a sort of triangle, and so we decided to make it out of the ones with a triangle shape, and it supported more weight.
When you first get the door from the joiners, it has this triangle in the top corner to keep it 90 degrees in the corners, and a bar across the bottom to make it the same width at the top and bottom. And this is what the builders put in to make it vertical.
A child experiences the real world by moving in it. As he explores his own ability and surroundings, he gains confidence and a better understanding of himself. Control is developed. Each child practices his own sequence of inventive movement.
This is Leeds Road, and this is the boys' playground, and we do seek counts on there.
This is our animal shed, and in there we have rabbits, gerbils, hamsters, a bird's aviary, and we used to have some guinea pigs.
When we first started, this was a derelict piece of land, and we had the children working on it to clear it of rubbish, rubble from old tiles off the school roof that had been dumped down there.
A teacher's own personal enthusiasm can often spark off a project like this one.
We don't want to make it into a garden, we want to make it into a nature reserve. We're planting the type of stuff and leaving common weeds there which will encourage insects, small mammals and some birds to come and feed. It's very handy having it so close to school in that there isn't a big wastage of time walking to the nearest wood. If the weather is fine, we can come straight out of the classroom onto there, get the groups working and then go back into school and check up all our results. Whilst we were on with clearing the nature reserve, we were also doing a certain amount of mathematics. We drew the nature reserve to scale. We then built this model to the same scale of 1/4 of an inch to the foot, and the area of the whole nature reserve was worked out in that way.
To come into contact with someone who's really keen about something can lead to a lifelong interest. It's not always possible to keep a bird or an animal in a flat or at home. But to be responsible for one at school, to hold and feed it, can give a respect and sympathy for all living things. This poem was written by one of the 11-year-olds.
The door opens and out strides the peacock. He strides purposefully into the passage and onto the lawn. As he strolls onto the lawn, his feathers scintillate in the sun. Haughtily he puts up his tail feathers. At once bronzes and greens are seen. Checkered patches show on his back as the peacock, elongating his blue and green neck, walks with his tail in the air.
First of all, we made the words to find, and when we'd made the words for the first verse, we found what the rhythm was, so we could make the music that rhythm. Show your pretty golden frills, spring set to the daffodils, forget the cold, for I am here, and plenty of others are blooming here. Hosanna, Hosanna, the people cry, Hosanna, Hosanna, that first Easter tide.
Half a century ago, George Sampson wrote, "School should be a place where there is work, but where there is also laughter. A place where there is law, but where there is also grace. A place where there is justice, but where there is also love."